Hey, how y'all doing out there? I'm back with you with another video. Today I'd like to talk about the Poco X3 NFC or the Galaxy A52. Which one is better? Now, that's going to be subjective and it's based on your experience, or what you think. Do you prefer Samsung products or you prefer Xiaomi products? Now, Xiaomi make great products and we all know Samsung makes great products. So it's just based on what you like the best. Now, when it comes to value, you're going to get value of both. The Poco X3 is going to be considerably cheaper than that of the A52 because this was released in 2020 of last year. This came out this year, 2021. All right. So you're looking at, when I bought the phone, it was like, I think it was around $230. So you can imagine how much cheaper it is now compared to what it was when it first was released. So when it comes to the cheaper device, is going to be the Poco X3 NFC. Now with the A52, the price varies depending on what variant you get. You get the 4G, it's going to be around 360. If you want the 5G variant, you're looking at anywhere between 450 and upwards. I say upwards of like $500. So it's just going to depend on if 4G is not an issue, or do you want something that's 5G more future proof. So it depends on you. But both phones, you're going to get really good value as far as money's concerned. Now, when it comes to the Poco, it's a GSM only phone, so no Sprint or Verizon. However, with the A52, it's unlocked for all carriers. So that's going to be a big advantage to most, probably, knowing they can use their phone on any carrier as opposed to not being able to use it on certain carriers. So to me, advantage goes to the A52. Now, when it comes to displays, the Poco X3 NFC has a 6.67-inch IPS LCD 1080p Full HD Plus display with a 91% screen-to-body ratio in HDR10. Now, I'm not a big fan of IPS LCD displays at all. Doesn't look bad, but it just doesn't look good as an AMOLED display or POLED display, in my opinion. Now, with the A52, you got a 6.5-inch 1080p Full HD Plus Super AMOLED display with an 84% screen to body ratio. And I'm going to tell you right now, when it comes to just display, the A52 has a superior display. Now, I'll show you. Now, you may think just based on my opinion. No, I would say no. I'll say based on what it looks like, honestly, when it just comes to display quality. But you may feel differently. Now, to me, this is not a bad looking display, but Samsung's display just looks better to me. It just looks better. All right. IPS is not the worst type of technology, but with AMOLED, you're going to get deeper blacks and punchier colors and a little more sharpness, in my opinion, because they're both Full HD Plus, but they're not equal when it comes to overall resolution. Because to me, AMOLED and POLED just looks better than IPS LCD displays. All right, let's talk refresh rate. Now, with the Poco X3 NFC, you're getting 120 hertz refresh rate and a 240 touch sampling rate. Now, this is more so a gaming phone. The A52 is not a gaming phone. However, you can play games on it. But this is primarily a gaming phone. That's why it has that 240 hertz touch sampling rate to make it more sensitive to the touch when you're playing games. Now, the refresh rate on the A52 is 90 hertz. Now, I don't think it's a big difference, honestly, between 120 and 90. Now, there is a noticeable difference between 60 and 90 or 60 and 120. But 120 or 90, there's really not a difference, in my opinion, based on my experience with 120 hertz refresh rates and using a 90 hertz refresh rate. It's just not. Now, maybe 144 hertz, that may be, maybe a little bit different between that and 120. But 90 and 120, pretty much the same. You're going to get a nice, smooth experience on both and faster scrolling speeds on both phones. So to me, it's even when it comes to refresh rates, even though this has a 90 and this has 120. All right, let's talk build quality. Now, when it comes to build quality, the Poco X3 NFC has Gorilla Glass on the front with a plastic back, but it has an aluminum frame. And the A52 has also Gorilla Glass 5 on the front with a plastic back and a plastic frame. So if you're looking for something a little, feels a little bit more premium, then you want the Poco X3 NFC because it has an aluminum frame. All right. Now, I'll tell you this about the A52. Even though it has a plastic back and a plastic frame, it does not feel cheap at all. It is the lighter of the two devices, but it feels premium. It has a matte finish on the back, so no fingerprints at all. You're not going to really get fingerprints on either, but it has like a matte finish. It's not as heavy. If you're the type of person that don't like a heavy phone, then you want the A52. And also keep in mind, the A52 is a smaller device, so it's going to be a little more manageable in the hands of somebody that has small to medium-sized hands. If it doesn't matter to you and you just prefer larger phones, then you want to go with the Poco X3 NFC because it's a bigger device, it's taller, and it's wider. All right. All right, so when it comes, let's look at water and dust resistance. So with the Poco, you got IP53 splash-proof protection. But with the A52, you got IP67 water and dust resistance. So this is good. The X3 is good for splash protection, but the A52 is good for your phone to be submerged in water, say up to anywhere between 1 to 3 feet. So when it comes to water and dust resistance, you definitely want to go with the A52. This is just splash proof. Let's talk about internal storage. Now the Poco X3 NFC has 128 gigs of internal storage, and A52 comes with 128 gigs of internal storage. Now I believe there's a 256 gig variant for both of these devices. Well, I know it is definitely for the A52, but I believe it's also a 256 variant for the Poco X3 NFC. Next, let's talk about expandable storage. Now the Poco X3 NFC has expandable memory up to 256 gigs, and the A52 has expandable memory up to 1 terabyte. So when it comes to expandable memory, advantage to the A52 when it comes to expandable storage. All right. So if it's about storage for you, then you're going to get more expandable storage on the A52. Next, let's talk about processors. The Poco has a 732G, Snapdragon 732G with the Adreno 618 GPU, and the A52 has a Snapdragon 720G with the Adreno 618 GPU. Now you got the 732 and the 720. Now I know numbers is not everything. Now which one do I think performs the best? In my opinion, I would have to say the A52 performs just a little bit better. Not a whole lot better, but just a little bit better than that of the Poco X3 NFC. Let's talk about Face Unlock. The Poco has Face Unlock, and the A52 also has Face Unlock. But which one has the better Face Unlock? For me, it's going to be the Poco X3 NFC. It just has a way more accurate Face Unlock than that of the A52, and it's faster. Fingerprint sensor. The Poco X3 NFC has a side-mounted fingerprint sensor on the side, built into the power button as well. And the A52 has an in-display optical, in-display fingerprint sensor. Both are really good, but I find that the Poco side-mounted fingerprint sensor is so much faster. I mean, both are good, but this one is just faster. The minute you touch it, it's just instant. This one takes at least a second. This is less than a second. All right. That might not be the biggest deal to everybody, but just wanted to let you know that. All right. Now, when it comes to headphone jack, both phones have a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. So that's a good thing for people that prefer devices with headphone jacks. Let's talk audio. Now, when it comes to audio, the Poco has a 24-bit high-res audio, and the A52 has a 32-bit DAC audio. Now, both have good audio sound, but in my opinion, the Poco X3 NFC has a superior 24-bit DAC when it comes to audio. It's high res, and it sounds awesome. This is good. It has a good sound. You'll definitely, the average consumer be fine with this, and it doesn't sound like trash, but these just sound better, just another level, okay? Next, let's talk dual stereo speakers. Both phones have dual stereo speakers, but which one has the best sounding speakers out of the two? I would have to say slightly the X3 NFC. It has a deeper, fuller, more robust sound when it comes to the speakers. And you also get a little bit of vibration. And I don't know if everybody likes that, but it don't bother me when these speakers are up as high as they can go. They sound really, really good. These sound good as well, but you're going to get a more immersive type of experience on the Poco X3 NFC when it comes to the dual stereo speakers. Next, let's talk about battery. Now, the Poco has a 5,160 milliamp battery. I get 3 days of usage, and I'm talking heavy usage. And the A52 has a 4,500 milliamp battery that I can get 2 days of use. So, of course, you're getting a bigger battery with the Poco X3 NFC, but you're going to get more battery life out of this device than that of the A52. But still, 2 days is not an issue. So if you can get 2 days, you're still good to go. So when it comes to battery life, both are great. Let's talk battery charging speeds. Now, the Poco has 33 watt fast charging, and the A52 has 25 watt super fast charging. Both charge the devices very quickly, but the Poco X3 NFC charges even faster at 33 watts. So you can't go wrong with either. They both charge really fast, but the Poco charges even faster. All right, when it comes to Android version, the Poco has Android 11. I'm not sure if it's going to get Android 12. I have no idea. Hopefully it will. But the A52 also has Android 11, but it will get Android 14 and 4 years of security updates. So you definitely know what you're getting with the A52 when it comes to software updates. Just not sure about the Poco X3 NFC when it comes to software updates, but it does presently have Android 11. All right, let's talk Android Skin. Now, that's the operating system on top of Android. So the Poco has the MIUI that is highly customizable and has some good features. And the A52 is utilizing One UI that is super packed with features. And I'm talking secure folders, Samsung Pay, Samsung Pass, one-handed mode. I mean, it just live lock screen and live wallpapers. I mean, this thing has so many features. Like, it's packed with features. So when it comes to just which skin I prefer, I would definitely go with One UI. Definitely go with One UI. It has way more features, and I just like the way Samsung's One UI operates, and it's very organized. The MIUI is kind of all over the place. It's not as organized as that of the One UI, and I just prefer Samsung One UI better. All right, both phones have NFC, so there's no problem with that. Next, you got always on display. So you know with Samsung you're going to get always on display. Unfortunately, with the Poco, you're not getting always on display. Not at all. So that's a disappointment. It should have it on there. It doesn't have to be fully functional, but it should at least have an always on display. But it doesn't. So kudos to Samsung for having that on their devices. Next, let's talk Bluetooth connectivity. So when it comes to Bluetooth, both phones have Bluetooth 5.1. Next, let's talk IR Blaster. What I mean by that is a universal remote control. You're going to get that with the Poco X3 NFC, where you can control your TV and all kind of things with that universal remote control. The A52 does not have that. Now, Samsung used to put IR blasters in their phones. The Note 4 was the last phone to have it, and they just never brought it back since then. It's unfortunate, but it's something that it does not have. Next, RAM. Both phones have 6 gigs of RAM. Both phones have one-handed mode. Neither phone has wireless charging, and that's a disappointment for both because I believe they should. It doesn't have to be fast wireless charging, but it should have wireless charging. Now, when it comes to private space, and what I mean by that is the Poco X3 NFC has a thing called second space. Basically, you could use a different fingerprint and have a whole different home screen and almost like a whole different phone. Like you got basically like 2 phones in one. And with the Samsung, it's different. They have a thing called secure folder where you put your photos, your photos, your videos, apps, and things in a secure folder, and you can use your fingerprint or a password in order to access it. So both have things that are private. But if I had to go which one I like the best, I would have to go with Samsung with a secure folder. I prefer a folder as opposed to changing my whole phone. I know that's second space is a cool feature, but I know that the time I had this phone, I never used it, but I always use secure folder. Which one is better is going to be based up, is going to be up to you. All right, next, and this is the final thing that I'm going to compare. The cameras. So, you can see both of these phones have a bunch of cameras. You got 4 cameras on the back of the A52, and you got 4 cameras on the back of the Poco X3 NFC, and they pretty much are similar into the specifications, and I'll read them to you. The Poco has a 64 megapixel main camera, a 13 megapixel ultra wide, a 2 megapixel macro, a 2 megapixel depth sensor, and it shoots at 4K at 30 frames per second, 1080p at 30 frames per second, and a 20 megapixel selfie that shoots in 1080p at 30 frames per second. This thing does take good quality photos and videos. All right, just want to make that clear. Now with the A52, you also have a 64 megapixel wide, 12 megapixel ultra wide, 5 megapixel macro, 5 megapixel depth sensor, and the rear camera shoots in 4K at 30 frames per second and 1080p at 30 and 60 frames per second. The thing that makes the difference already is that the Poco X3 NFC does not shoot at 60 frames per second on none of the cameras at all, the front or the back. Just 30 frames per second when it comes to 4K and 1080p. And with the Samsung, you can shoot at 30 frames per second. 4K at 30 frames per second, but at 1080p at 30 and 60 on the front and the back. Now, on the front, you got a 32 megapixel wide selfie. Like I said, it shoots at 4K at 30 and 1080p at 30 and 60 frames per second. Now, if I had to pick which one of these phones that I would pick for myself, which one is the better device to me, I would have to go with the A52. And the reason for that, I prefer One UI. I prefer the display on here so much better. And then, and the cameras on here are better. In my opinion, they look much, much better. Night photos are great. Daytime photos are great. Video is great. The selfie camera on here is not good at all. Selfie camera on here is very good. And then there's no 4K on the front camera at all. No 4K at all. At least you're getting 4K on this one, and you're getting no 60 frames at 1080p per second. So when it comes down to photos and videos, the A52 is better. But for me, it's just One UI, the display, the always-on display, secure folder, all the features that comes with a Samsung device. I just like this phone better. This phone is still a beast. It's a big phone. It's a heavy phone. You're getting more screen to body ratio. You're getting better speakers. But just for me, that display, man, see, this IPS LCD display just don't cut it for me. Gotta give me that Super AMOLED. This display is off the chain. And that's probably one of the first things I look for when I'm, when I want a phone. The display gotta be straight. And this display is absolutely phenomenal. And it takes great pictures, great battery life, nice performance, 90 hertz display, headphone jack. You're getting it all. But this one, you're going to get better dual speakers, better audio through the headphone jack, more screen to body ratio, more display. It just depends. Both are really good devices. But like I said, if I'm picking, I'm going with the A52. All right. So thank you for taking the time to view this content. Please smash that thumbs up button. Subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and hit that notification bell so you'll be notified when I upload another video. I do appreciate your time, and I hope I haven't wasted your time. I hope this helps you make a decision if you're deciding between these two devices. This one is going to be a little bit cheaper though, because it came out last year, so it's going to cost a lot less. You could probably get it for $200 or less. And with this one, you're looking at, I've seen it as low as like $360 for the 4G. The 5G is going to run you $450 and up. And the 5G also has 120 hertz refresh rate as opposed to 90, which I don't think makes a difference, honestly, but I just want to let y'all know that. So thanks again for taking the time to view this content. I do appreciate it. Hope Hope everybody out there is staying safe, and I'll check you guys out in the next one. Peace.